Hey everybody, just a little update. I am Hans Albrecht, of course, from Options with Hans, 15 years pro options market maker. Oh, we're getting some sales here. VMC cement, boring old cement. I'm selling calls. I've been selling calls in PWR, Quanta, a lot of things I was talking about in my video from Jan 7th, was it? A little while ago, I said everything is shifting into the real world, the real world. So as always, of course, it's your trade, your responsibility. This is not financial advice. And if you're okay with that, keep watching. If not, we'll see you next time, hopefully. GLW Corning, we've made a whole bunch of money on. A lot of nice calls. The Microsoft call wasn't great lately. In fact, I've shorted some today. I'm up a little bit of money on that short, and I got out of some longs. So I got to shift a little bit. I think that whole area is a little bit under pressure. As I've been saying, this is nothing entirely new, but I think we're shifting. We're seeing a lot of money. Those areas have that tech area, that mag area has a ton of money. That helps to really push some of these smaller areas up quite substantially. And that's probably part of their phenomenal parabolic runs, is that, it doesn't take a whole lot of money to get into a smaller sector like that when you're pulling serious cash out of some of these names. And so, I mean, I think Nvidia's okay. I think Broadcom's okay. I think Google's great. I think there's some good, I think Amazon's good. I think there's some good positive stories. My worry is that we've kind of hit a bit of a wall with these things. And as there are more cockroaches in this area, right? Google just issued more bonds. These companies have gone, as other people have said, they've gone from very low, light capital, light capex to heavier capex, right? They're spending 200 million for Amazon, 200, almost 200 million from Google. They need to do these things in order to secure the next 100 years. They need to win the AI race, or at least be in the, silver, gold, and bronze. I think that's the reality of their world. So, and they are the toll booth companies, right? But I will say that, and I did that video on Apple last weekend. I talked about how, there's a little bit of a new reality, and I don't think this is very broadly risky, but I will say that, the ability to basically buy a computer, a nice Mac, a Mac Mini, Mac Studio, something, maybe a super souped up Mac, and run models locally and bypass the toll booth companies, that's a little bit of a concern. I don't think it's a realistic, kind of outcome for most of the world. I think most of the world will continue to use cloud and all these things and all these great tools that are available to them. I think that is just a little bit of a concern, but I think they maintain their toll booth powers. But at the moment, I think there's just a shift going on into the, it's not that I think, it's very clear. The areas that I said we're going to do great, a month to a month and a half ago have really gone basically parabolic. So if you really look at some of these areas, Corning, I really love. I'd like to see that back down towards the 9 EMA, right down around here, maybe in the mid 115s, maybe high teens. That could be an interesting spot to rehook. I still have a little bit of a position there. And as I've been saying, look at this absolutely pathetic bounce in Adobe. I'm very sorry for Adobe shareholders, but this is just awful, awful action. And unfortunately, I took off my put spread, and I rolled down the long put, and I kind of, I've turned it into a bit of a credit, and I may have to take that off because this isn't looking very good. And I look at CRM. I think I see people pushing back on Twitter, and I keep saying, you don't understand that it doesn't mean that these companies are going out of business necessarily, but this is an extinction type meteor that has just hit this industry. And we don't know, right? I said this weeks ago. Brad Gerstner said the same thing a few days ago, and love to be in the company of Brad Gerstner on an opinion. But this is where you look and you say, it doesn't matter what you made last year or the year before. It doesn't matter that you're trading at 10, 15, 20-year lows and multiples. What matters is investors are saying, well, what does this look like 3 years from now? The agentic tools are incredible. If you have not used these agentic tools that have come out, the Claude bots, OpenClaw, etc., if you have not used them, don't even bother opining on the software industry. Trust me, if you have not used them, your opinion is going to be severely coming up short. I'm sorry to say, no offense to anybody, but it is absolutely mind-blowing stuff that's being done. And that's now. What are things going to look like a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now? Software is in a very difficult place. I am going to be looking for more rallies to short here. And that doesn't mean everyone, right? So we've seen what's happened is that when you get a very, very big sell-off, or a big rally, it's highly correlated, right? Everything goes up when everyone's in a great mood, and everything gets crushed when a narrative hits something like software, and everyone's going to lose, right? Every software is going to go out of business. We know that's not true, and so now we're seeing no rally in Adobe and CRM, which is exactly what I could have predicted. I thought CRM probably would have rallied a little bit more, but I saw somebody the other day. He made his own CRM software. He made it, right? He made it. Didn't take him long. I know that doesn't mean CRM, Salesforce, is going out of business next week, but you gotta understand the writings on the wall for the value that software has brought to the world and how they charge for that, and the coding and the workflow that they deliver to people. Coding is not a barrier anymore. Creating workflows is not a barrier anymore, right? These are the things. This disintermediation is extremely strong right now. That's the problem, is that you're able to cut in on the things that they had, that sort of IP and those abilities that are hard to replicate. Now they're not as hard to replicate. Can you replicate all the data that they've amassed over the years? No, you can't do that, right? So there are some caveats to all this. But the problem is the market doesn't know how to price things right now. And I talked about this 6 months ago. I said, listen, we're going to get to a point where markets, analysts are just going to go, I'm not exactly sure, because even analysts tend to think linearly. And the demand for compute, what's happening out there and what will be happening over the next 5 years is going to blow people's minds. You cannot think linearly anymore. And so things are going to be really, really changing. And this is a reality that we're going to have to deal with as traders and investors. This is not, old school has come back in the sense that all the things you can drop on your toe are doing well, but things are not old school anymore in a sense that it is an easy market to figure out, and you bring in all the same metrics you've been looking at and all the economic laws of economics that you think are working. We're going to see massive growth, GDP, productivity, and we're going to see it with no jobs being created. The rules of jobs versus versus value creation, those physics are breaking down. So you have to start thinking differently in a world like this. And so, I think we've seen some of these things come back. Datadog is starting to pull away. So look, they crushed all software. Datadog, massive jump on very good numbers. These are areas where I think things can stay okay. Now, if software gets crammed again to the downside, well, maybe it'll suffer too. But here's Snowflake. They're heading into their earnings report in a couple of weeks as well. And so we'll have to see how they do. I tend to feel that these guys have a bit of IP that is difficult to replicate or replace. And nor do companies really want to suddenly find a replacement. They want to figure out AI right now, and they're going to call Palantir and Snow and these companies to help them. They're not going to just suddenly figure it out themselves for the most part, right? So I think their franchises are fairly strong. Other areas where we're starting to see some rallies as well is where I got a little bit early, but look at this. Software is still up with markets getting a little bit hit now, and tech getting a little bit hit. We can see software has come back. This is what I talked about in a video not long ago. I talked about how this is going to be an issue, right? Security, cybersecurity is going to be an absolutely massive problem, a massive issue at some point because of what's going on. Go back and watch my video on Cloudflare if you want to kind of see, my full thoughts on that. But here we go. Cloudflare trying to bounce back as well. I think it's got potential. Akamai has pulled back a little bit more than I thought it would, but it's kind of hanging in there, right? So we're going to start to see software and software-ish and software adjacent type stuff where there's some value there start to pull away maybe from the general carnage, perhaps, right? Unless things get really ugly, then we kind of correlate to one again. So I think that means that some things are just going to continue to be challenged. I think, some of the regular places to hide, if tech really suffers and money's got to come out of it and people are nervous, and imagine how much Nvidia people own around the world. I mean, massive amounts, massive amounts. Torsten Slok talked about it. It is just gigantic. That's big money coming out. Where's it going to go? Well, it's going to go internationally, because I think the US is challenged again this year, because it's not as materials based as some of these other countries, sort of power based. Like Brazil is in a really good position for that kind of thing. So I think the US struggles because it's going to be a world of dispersion, where you've got some things doing okay and you've got some things doing, going the other direction. And that from an index level just kind of means that maybe not a whole lot goes on in general. Maybe QQQs, where I have bearish positions on, bearish hedges on, that's an area where I think things can remain a little bit weak. So I'm not adding aggressively to the upside. Some areas, as I said, the photonics, like this is where there's some real interesting potential here, right? I put out reports for members a couple weeks ago. This thing was in the low 400s. It just hit 600, right? So if you're not a member, if you're not in Turbo Trader Pro, if you're not in Leaps Trader, you're missing out on some really great stuff. It's not perfect, but you're missing out on the biggest themes over the past year. I have been absolutely balls to the wall, big on AI. And then in the last few months, I called the top on high beta not that long ago, like in November on Samantha's show, on our show. And since then, it's really been about pushing in, probably held on to a couple of things a little too long, but it's about pushing in to that broader market, that world. And I've been putting out tons of videos about that stuff for the last couple of months. I hope you've been watching, because it has been absolutely critically timely. So let's keep going. If you're interested, reach out to Natasha for a very, very special price, because Turbo Trader Pro is almost $9,000. But talk to Natasha. Last I checked, she's in a good mood today, and we'll get you in there. We just had a whole bunch of new members, really excited about it, and new features coming as well all the time. Just awesome, awesome stuff. And then Leaps Trader, fantastic. We've had some great responses from people lately. Thank you so much for these trades. Out of the box trades, right? Not the usual stuff. So thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next video.